Thanks for tuning in to the PlatformCon 2023. And thanks for tuning in to my talk on enable secure self-service access to Kubernetes cluster with Paralus on PlatformCon 2023. Thanks for the organizers for giving me this opportunity to talk about Paralus open source project. So my name is Simon Sufder. I'm a developer relations manager at Rafi Systems, and I'm also a CNCF ambassador. So, in this talk, we will outline the typical challenges that enterprises face and expand on the criticality of integrating best practices across secure access, Kubernetes RBAC, and SSO to enable zero trust model for Kubernetes infrastructure access. Key design consideration and trade-off platform engineers can leverage for enabling secure Kubernetes access. Reducing cognitive load from platform teams, repetitive tasks including setting up RBAC, revoking permissions, pre-configuring role across clusters, namespaces, projects, and more. And how Parallels and open source projects can help platform team enable a seamless kubectl experience and centralize the configuration of Kubernetes access control for their developers across clusters running in public cloud environments or on on-premise data center. So we are really delighted to let you know, like we have a part of the KubeCon Amsterdam 2023, and we were thrilled to have our own dedicated booth for the first time ever. Although it was a very small booth, but we are really excited to see the visitor who were keen to learn more about our project. We had some quick demos on how to use this project, along with some tasty cookies and cool stickers to give away. The visitors were curious about the project and its potential, and some of them even reached out for a dedicated demo of the tool post KubeCon. Mo and Abhinav were at the booth, and thanks for their presence. And they had an absolute blast interacting with visitors from all over the world. Mohan shared that it was an amazing to see the enthusiasm and interest in the project, and it was truly rewarding to engage with so many passionate people. The inability to secure Kubernetes infrastructure is growing problem for organization. In May 2022, a nonprofit or security organization named the Shadow Server Foundation scanned more than 450,000 systems hosting Kubernetes and found more than 380,000, 80% of them of 80% of these systems were accessible via the internet, potentially providing an opening into the corporate network. In fact, the data shows that the majority of Kubernetes API server were found in the United States, nearly 53%. So without Parallels, companies must manually manage access to each cluster using a jump host, and that has its own disadvantages or cons that listed here, or via jump host, or via VPN. And all these has their pros and cons, and they also can need to build custom tooling to audit and map all the action performed to a user identity, all of which is error prone and increase the risk of breaches as the number of cluster grows. So basically, all the key takeaway from these approaches were you have to need to deal with the cognitive load of managing Kubernetes access control cluster by cluster, manually manage access to each cluster using jump host or VPN, and that will cost dollars to purchase and operate. Build custom tooling to audit and map all action performed during user identity, which was error prone, that increase the risk of breaches as the number of cluster grow. So we need a model to have a least privilege access, and that's where Parallax comes very handy. And we have a talk on cloud native security on CNCF YouTube channel on these approaches and how Parallax is the best on the best one to above all of these approaches. You can go to the CNCF channel and enjoy listening to this talk by Mohan Atria from Office System on securing access to Kubernetes infrastructure with Kubernetes zero trust principle. I have a YouTube channel, Cloud Native Podcast, as well, where the same talk is actually given with the various advanced use cases as well, securing remote access to Kubernetes cluster. But today, my focus is to tell you the developer story. So remember, in day 01, developer might create a namespace, created an Argo CD deployment, and then he finally deployed app. In day 2, he used the existing namespace. He reduced the image sizes of the app that running in the form of the container. He secure base images. He installed scanner. He deployed policy engine. He installed service mesh. And on day 03, he realized this service mesh is too complicated to operate and manage. Let's spin in another one, use another one, and install existing service mesh. Oh ho, what happened? App was deleted accidentally. What happened? Policy engine was also deleted accidentally. Oh, I need a policy now. DevOps team, please create a namespace and tell me that I can only access this namespace and doesn't do anything else. Oh no, yes, good. Access granted. You can actually access this namespace and do whatever you like to do. I need to install a service mesh on a certain namespaces. DevOps team, now please give me access to the info namespace so I can install Istio and access is granted. But what happened? Already app running is broken. DevOps team now please create a rule next time that creates a rule next time that only as I'm allowed to use this namespaces of infra and I can doesn't do anything else on other namespaces. Dev team, access granted, do whatever you like to do. DevOps, what happened to the existing application? Dev team, it's broken. Why? A new member joined the team and accidentally broke the Argo CD deployment. Dev team, ask the DevOps team, please get a rule say that John can only view, who's recently joined us as a new member, can view resources in this namespace and do nothing else. DevOps team, remember, not every user need unrestricted ability to create, modify, and delete resources. If there are unrestricted, 90% of the time you are battling with troubleshooting tools to learn who does what and when. And that's where implementing RBAC is quite a very handy task in here. So the RBAC stands for the role-based access control framework that allows you to do just that. For example, it can help you to ensure that developer only deploys certain app to a given namespace, or that your infrastructure management team have view only access for monitoring tasks. That is where a platform team working on repetitive tasks, including setting up RBAC, revoking permission, pre-configuring role across cluster namespaces and projects. And in Kubernetes, we have roles and we have cluster roles. And in Kubernetes, we have roles and we have clusters roles. And roles define the action a user can perform within a cluster or namespace respectively. And you can assign these roles to Kubernetes subject like users, group, or service account with role binding and clustered role binding. But how does this manual setting of RBAC works at scale? Remember, you need to deal with hundreds and tens and thousands of different teams living in different geography, working with different architecture pattern for the clusters, and you have a globally shared cluster system is well. So manually, it's look like a very painstaking task. And the summary of requirements are also very, very huge. You have to ability to remotely access cloud Kubernetes cluster. You need ephemeral just-in-time least privilege credentials. You need all access strongly authenticated, whatever namespace they are accessing. You need to centralize the audit trail of all access within the cluster. So remember, we can have a production, staging, environment. For the dev cluster, you have different namespaces. Application team can see the app namespace, and DevOps team might need to see the Mango namespace as well. So the summary of a requirement is used globally. Authentication, different teams member, and the cluster grows in time. Manually, it's take time and challenging. And also, there's a hierarchy associated with how the Kubernetes permission model work, and it has a learning curve associated with it. And looking at this learning curve, you have to implement this for the each and every cluster, and that is where you need a third party tool. So the manually setting up RBAC strategy reduces the amount of manual efforts associated with creating individual roles and modifying them. But unfortunately, this approach won't completely eliminate manual effort. Admins might need to create custom roles on an individual basis when the generic role bindings based on a user type do not fit the need of an individual's user. And that's where you need to have a third party tool, and that's where we're discussing the Parallels. So Parallels offers a centralized and automated way to manage Kubernetes RBAC. First, it's an admin can configure roles and permission within the Kubernetes cluster in a hosted Kubernetes environment, and you would use a cloud border identity IDPs or access management services to do this. Creation of custom roles and users and group. Parallels allow you to dynamic and intermediate changing and revoking of permissions. Parallels allows you to ability to control access via pre-configured role across clusters, namespaces, projects, and more. Parallels can seamlessly integrate with IDPs, allowing the use of external authentication engine such as GitHub, Google, Azure AD, Okta, and other. Automated login of all the user action performed for auditing and compliance purposes. Interact with Parallels either modern and GUI. We have a dashboard available. We have a CLI tool called PCTL, and Parallels also give you the APIs as well. So Parallels by default is very much enabling the secure access. The way it's work, it's very the security is baked into the 801. You can actually access the Parallels servers. You can, if you need to access to GKE or AKS, first you interact with the Parallels server, and that give you the service account was just in time a service account token in the Kubernetes, and then you actually perform some of the Kubernetes API request and responses. As soon as you actually your responses get back delivered to you, we remove the permissions. But remember, we have a time, but and that is the flow is baked in, and we have a kubectl security from the ground up to access the cluster remotely, regardless of where they are, or the public cloud, or in their on-premise data centers. So, in a nutshell, Parallels help you centralize secure access to cluster fleet, federate and automate RBAC, multi-factor authentication for strong authentication, least privilege access, immutable audit trail. We have a governance compliant policies, reducing the attack service, integration with IDPs for the single sign-on, ephemeral service account tokens, and just-in-time service account creation and audit log streaming of all actions. So when to use Parallels? When you need to securely access cloud Kubernetes cluster using the web browser or kubectl via remotely. You need to have just-in-time and ephemeral account service accounts with federated and automated RBAC. And if you want to centralize the audit trail of all kubectl activity. Recently announced Parallels in the AWS marketplace. Perhaps many of you are not aware of AWS Marketplace. So I'll start with that. AWS Marketplace is a place where customers can find, test, purchase, and use software and services that have been validated to run on AWS. So, if your Kubernetes journey started with a handful of team members and a small cluster consisting of only a few nodes, you might not have a systematic approach to authorization yet. Perhaps you even granted everyone on your team cluster admin permission to keep management simple. Search Paralus in the AWS marketplace as a one-click installer, reduce cognitive load from platform teams, enables zero trust security for your AKS clusters and team. So here are more resources for you to go to. Go to the Parallax.io website, look at the feature and the where the use cases you can actually use Parallax for. The docs is actually literally wonderful. We have a wonderful dedicated maintainer actually updating the doc on daily basis. We have a blog. We actually participated in the case study event in 2023. We have given you some tips and tips to secure Kubernetes cluster access, and we have a different blogs available for the EKS, GKE, AKS. We are also listed on the Digital Ocean Marketplace, and there's so much more to unpack, but we're run short of time, and that's where I should stop. And thanks for tuning in and listening to my talk. And I hope this will help you understand how Parallels, an open source project, help platform team reducing the cognitive load associated with repetitive tasks, including setting up RBAC, revoking permission, pre-configuring role across cluster namespaces, projects, and more, and how Parallax can enable a seamless kubectl experience and centralize the configuration of Kubernetes access control for their developers across cluster running in public cloud environments or in on-premise data center. With that, thank you very much for the organizer for giving me this opportunity. Hope you all have a wonderful PlatformCon 2023. We'll meet you again sometime in future. Stay safe, stay healthy. Have a wonderful PlatformCon, everyone.